hello everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and today I'm going to be talking about Scott Peterson. Now, he's been convicted and he's been in prison a long time, and he has gone for appeals and it's not really worked, so he's still in prison. So what am I actually going to be talking about today? Well, I want to talk about profiling and perception, and how these things come together. Is he guilty or is he innocent? I'll talk about the evidence. This is a highly circumstantial case, and a lot of people think that circumstantial cases shouldn't exist, but they do, and they are legally acceptable, because if there is enough circumstantial evidence, then the law says you can put that guy away. And there's been other cases I've done which have been highly circumstantial, and I feel like that the person was convicted on that circumstantial evidence, and thank God. So that's one thing I'm going to be talking about. Is he guilty or innocent? What about the circumstantial case? Also, what I want to talk about is how other people present the case and how we should accept their what the information they're giving us, their opinions they're giving us. And so I picked three who I spent time looking at their videos. And this will be Dr. Grande, Ken Mains, and Stephanie Harlow. And Dr. Grande is a therapist, and Ken Mains is a retired detective, and Stephanie Harlow is a YouTuber who does true crime. And so I really wanted people to understand this is not an anti-anybody, other people's presentations, but it's very important to understand what their background is, what their subjectivity might be, and how reason they present things the way they do. And when we understand this, we can enjoy what they put out. We can get something from each person, and not say, oh, well, they do this, so just throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing. So everybody has something to contribute, but you have to be aware of how they contribute it. And that includes me, because people have their opinions on me as well. And I have a background, and I have a viewpoint, and I have a skill set. And I think that when people view my videos, they should do the same thing. Understand who I am, where I come from, what my skills are. They don't have to agree with everything I come up with. And if they don't agree with something, they don't have to say, unsubscribe. They can see whether it has a use for them, whether it still is beneficial in the long run. If 90% of my stuff is good for you to learn from, I'm happy. 10% you don't like, well, we're not perfect. And some things may not strike you right, but I don't unsubscribe from people. I subscribe to Dr. Grande, I subscribe to Ken Mains, and I subscribe to Stephanie Harlow. And you might say, wow, why do you do that? Because they have something to offer. I don't always agree, but they have something to offer. And on that note, just because my channel does need to survive, let me point out that you can also subscribe to my channel. Subscribe, and that does help me greatly. This is a struggling small channel, and so I'm an educational channel, which kind of puts me in a different little category. I'm also like 67 years old, which also kind of puts me in another category. And I'm also female, and I don't do makeup. So another category. But I am a criminal profiler, and I'm an educator. So if you enjoy this, please subscribe, and don't just say, subscribe, like, and hit the bell. Where's the bell? There's the bell. So you can find out what else I'm going to be doing and what other cases. And also look at my case list, because I have a playlist. And a lot of times people ask me, oh, can you talk about this? And I'm like, yeah, just go down the playlist, playlist, and click that button, and you got it right there. All right. If you'd like to be in the chat room, please do join Patreon. That is one of the greatest places for support here. It's $5 a month. You get 8 lives that you can join in. All my wonderful people in the chat room are part of Patreon. Keeps away the crazies. Did I say you're crazy? Yeah, probably. Maybe you are. Okay, and that helps support the channel. You can also buy one of my books. I have a number of books listed below with Amazon. I think they're good books. This is a fiction book, but there's also nonfiction books. Check them out. Okay, that's my spiel on that. But also subscribe to other people, like the people behind me. Although Dr. Grande's hit 1 million, so okay, I'm jealous. don't subscribe to him, subscribe to me. Actually, everybody does better than me at the moment. Ken Maines is doing pretty good. Stephanie Harlow's doing great. So, and I know it's okay. They all deserve what they're getting. I just wish I deserved a little more. Okay. I'm just messing with you. All right. So let me before I get on to Scott Peterson and why I'm including my other YouTuber friends. Although Kim Maine says I'm not a YouTuber, I am a detective and I'm not a YouTuber. Dude, you actually are a YouTuber, and it's okay. You know, I'm a YouTuber too, but I'm a criminal profiler. But you know, I understand your point. You know, you want to be professional, and you don't want to be just somebody thinking you're out there just doing silly stuff and to make money. You want to present information, and you do. So, but you know, we're all still kind of YouTubers because we're on YouTube. All right, so let me say hello to everybody in the, oh my God, there's like 46 comments. I don't want to spend too much time here because otherwise I won't get to the show. But I'm not going to, I'm just going to say hello to everybody. Florence, Benny, Lisa S, Lisa N is here. Heidi's here. Who else is here? Molly's here. Doreen is here. Oh, Lisa N is here. Lisa S is here. Florence is here. Doreen, I'm repeating myself. Gretchen is here. Carrie's here. Christine is here. I can't even see it because everybody's here. But Molly's here. If I missed you, I feel bad because I like you all. Joe is here. Who else is here? I can't even keep up with it because there's a whole big conversation going on in the chat room, and I love my community. I got very particular. I made all my live shows only for the Patreon community. And people ask me, why did I do that? Because when I went public, I made more money, mind you, but anybody could come in and it was just a free for all of insanity. And now I have sane and lovely people who are truly interested in learning about profiling and crime scene analysis. And they're wonderful. I mean, I've gotten to like everybody because they have great senses of humor and they really care about stuff. And so I have the best community. So join that on Patreon and you'll see what I'm talking about. They're great. So anyway, all right, let's get on to the topic. All right. So here's what I want to talk about first. Whenever we're talking about a case that has been around for a really long time, which is Scott Peterson, we have people who are going to comment on it, especially because it makes money. Yeah, it does. So if I talk about Oodle Doodle Guy, nobody cares, and I get 30 likes on the video and 50 views, and nobody knows who the hell I'm talking about. Scott Peterson, oh my God! So everybody's going to talk about Scott Peterson because it's a huge case, but that's okay. Again, it's a fascinating case, so that's why people do it. All right, so Dr. Grande has done his video, Ken Maines has done his video, Stephanie Harlow has done her video. And I am now doing my video. Okay, so now the first thing I want to talk about is what we get from each person's video on this case. Oh, wait, in case you don't know who's, wait a minute. Some people here from another country, they may not know who Scott Peterson is. I have to be respectful of that because I have people coming from all over the world and they're like, don't you know this case? Everybody in my country knows this case. And I'm like, never heard of it. And then I go and find out about the case. I'm like, holy crap. That's why everybody in the country is fascinated. Well, this is a U.S. case that is one of the iconic cases. And so let me just give you the basics just before I start so that you don't think, I don't even know who this guy is. All right. So this guy, so I'm going to do Wikipedia because, you know, that's the quickest, easiest way. So this is Scott Lee Peterson. He's an American convicted murderer. In 2004, he was convicted of the first-degree murder of his wife, Laci. Let me show you a lovely picture of him, of Scott and Laci. Here they are, Scott and Laci. There they are. They're having wine. That was before she was pregnant because she was drinking wine. I guess that was the Christmas before she got murdered. Anyway, they're happy and looking happy and lovely. And but he got convicted of murdering his wife, Laci, who you see there in the picture. She was pregnant at the time, like 8 months, going on to 9 months pregnant. And also he got convicted of the second-degree murder of their unborn son, Connor. They actually named their son because they'd done the ultrasound and the sonogram thingy, and they knew it was a boy, so they named their child to be Connor. Okay. In 2005, Peterson was sentenced to death by lethal injection. His case was put on automatic appeal to the Supreme Court of California, and the death penalty was overturned, although his conviction was upheld. He was resentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole on December 8th of 2021. Now, there's appeals and appeals and appeals as the American system believes in an umpteen amount of appeals based on almost usually nothing. But anyway, they do that because they want to be fair. All right. So I'm not going to go to the disappearance of Laci. Okay. Let me just give you the basics of disappearance of what happened to Laci, which is his wife, who was 8 months pregnant with their son, Connor. On December 23rd, 2002, at 5:45 p.m., Peterson and Laci went to a salon. That's the actual name of a place. It's a salon. I'm sorry. You name a salon. Well, that was imaginative. Oh my goodness, that was very clever. So, well, come up with something better. I'm sorry, that just made me laugh. I never saw that before. They went to salon because it's a salon. The workplace of Laci's sister, Amy Roach. Okay, Rocha, and I forgot to check out how this is pronounced. Rocha? And I'm just going to say, I got to laugh because Ken Maines, he was talking about this case, and he was trying to say satanic, and he said santanic. He's not really good with, he's not really good with certain words. He said, and I got attacked by all these people because I said santanic. Okay, so Amy Rocha. I forgot to check out the pronunciation. So, excuse me, Amy, Laci's sister, Amy. Okay, for a monthly scheduled haircut. As they spoke, Amy, they said Rocha, but I don't know what's her name. Amy said Peterson offered to pick up a fruit basket that she had ordered for her grandfather as a Christmas gift the next day because he would be playing golf at a nearby course. Prosecutors say Peterson also told other people he'd be playing golf on the day of Christmas Eve. He's in California, so the weather is, generally speaking, not too bad for that. So I get it. And some people say, why would he be playing golf when it's Christmas Eve and is, getting ready for Christmas? I'm on Scott's side on that, only because, I know that sometimes when women are getting ready for a holiday and they're doing all this crap, I'm on Laci's side. Like, go away because you're annoying. You are annoying. Go do something else. Go play golf. Whatever. Get out of the house. You're just annoying the shit out of me. I get it. Okay. So he's supposed to be playing golf on Christmas Eve. Later that evening, Sharon, Laci's mother, spoke with Laci on the telephone around 8:30 p.m. So 8:30 p.m. on December 23rd is the last time anybody outside of Scott says they had contact with Laci. Peterson later told police that he last saw his wife at 9:30 a.m. on December 24th, 2002. We're talking 20 years now, almost 20 years. It will be 20 years in December. When he left to go fishing at the Berkeley Marina, and I'm going to get into the Berkeley Marina issue. He said Laci was watching a cooking television show, but was preparing to mop the floor, bake cookies, and walk the family dog to a nearby park. Okay, I'm just going to stop here just because these are things I'm going to address later, but they just pop out right now. First of all, there's a big issue of, was Laci killed on the 23rd in the evening and not on the 24th? So in other words, did she actually wake up alive and do these things in the morning? Or is that just his spiel? Now, apparently there was like a curling iron that was looked like it was used in the morning, but I'm sorry, but people use curling irons, just leave them on, they just leave them there. So that doesn't mean you didn't use it yesterday, but you never got to use it the next day. That's just nonsense. So then there was this issue about that he's watching, I think it was Martha, what's her name? Okay, wait a minute. Wait. Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart. And supposedly she talked about meringue. And so Scott says, I was there. She was watching her favorite show. Martha Stewart talked about meringue. And it turns out that actually Martha Stewart did talk about meringue on December 24th. I have two problems with this. One is also apparently she also talked about it on December 23rd. So, and secondly, how many husbands pay attention to what their wives are looking at with cooking shows, and he would actually remember that Martha Stewart was talking about meringue. All right, maybe you're that kind of guy, but all right. Anyway, so that was another issue, and then what was the other thing? Oh, she was preparing to mop the floor in spite of the fact that the cleaning lady had been there the day before. Now, I do employ cleaning ladies. I have two lovely ladies that come to my house every 2 weeks because I can't afford every week. Damn it. And it's the happiest day of my 2 weeks because I walk back in, I'm like, oh my God, the place has been cleaned. It smells great. Everything is gorgeous. And I always take pictures and then I send them to the Maria, and I'm like, muchísimas gracias, because I suck cleaning and I won't do it. So I'm so appreciative. But I will tell you, I would be pretty surprised if I came to my home and a day later I had to mop my kitchen floor, because if Maria didn't mop my kitchen floor, and I'd be kind of shocked because I pay for this. She's a wonderful. She and her ladies are wonderful. People that I hire, and I've hired them for over like 2 or 3 years now, because I adore them. They make me so happy. And they do things I can't do because I suck at cleaning and I don't actually want to do it at all. So somebody like mops my kitchen floor, I'm like, if I came in and she didn't mop my floor, so the next day I had to get up and mop my floor, I'd be firing that person. So I don't understand how Laci's mopping the floor the next day after the cleaning lady has already been there. Seems a little strange, but anyway, all right. I digress, maybe. All right, so anyway. So then what happens is he said he last saw his wife at 9:30 a.m. on December 24th. And that's really questionable because of the television thing about the meringue. So he might have left a little later. When he left to go fishing at the Berkeley Marina, he said Laci was watching a cooking show, but was preparing to mop the floor, bake cookies, and walk the family dog to the nearby park. Dude has a great wife. Gorgeous, caring, just great. Later that morning, a female neighbor of the Petersons says she found the Petersons' dog, a golden retriever named Mackenzie, and returned him to the Petersons' backyard at 10:10 and 10:17 a.m. What? How can you return him at 2 different times? Okay, I'm Wikipedia. What? Okay. But she found the dog wandering around with his leash. And this is important because of did Laci actually walk the dog and somebody attacked her, and therefore that's why the dog was wandering around? Or did Scott just let the dog out with the leash and then take off on his fishing trip to make it look like his wife got attacked while she was walking the dog? So anyway, the person returned the dog to Peterson's yard. Peterson said he returned that afternoon to find it empty. And they found Mackenzie in their backyard. And Laci's 1996 Land Rover was still in the driveway. So he comes home at, what was that time is that? It doesn't say here. But he comes home in the afternoon. He finds her, Laci's car is in the driveway. The dog is still have his leash hanging around its neck. And he's like, what? That's kind of weird. Her purse is there. Her phone is not there, which is very interesting. I'm going to get to that later. So the leash is muddy. So it's like, where was the doggy? So anyway, he comes home. He finds his wife not there, but her car is in the driveway. So he goes ahead and he showers and washes his clothes because he got wet from the fishing trip. All right. So then eventually, he doesn't see his wife. He doesn't see his wife. Laci hadn't returned to 5:15 p.m. Still not there. Peterson called his mother-in-law and then said, hey, my wife is missing. Which is kind of an odd thing to say, because wouldn't you just want to say, is Laci over there? But okay, maybe that's an incorrect information, but interesting. So anyway, He calls, and Laci's not over at the mother-in-law's house. So then what happens is, uh, half an hour later, Laci's stepfather calls the police. And then okay, so then what happens is the Modesto police, they live in Modesto, California, they arrive, and the Petersons' home. They find Laci's keys, wallet, and sunglasses in a purse in her closet. So everything is meticulous in the house. So they question him. They find him to be in a dead calm, despite his family's distraught reaction to her disappearance. So in other words, his pregnant wife is missing. Her whole family's like freaked, and he's like, whatever. All right, this is important. I'm going to get to what they think about this issue in a minute. So anyway, well, I suspected that one of the things that one of the detectives says was that Broncini, that's one of the first guys on the scene, Detective Broncini, his nonchalant demeanor was suspicious. He described it as a strange combination of polite and arrogant, disaffectedly distant, and impatiently irritable. He just didn't seem like a man who was crushed or even greatly disturbed by his wife's disappearance and possible death. I suspected Scott, and the other detective said, I suspected Scott when I first met him. Didn't mean he did it, but I was a little thrown off by his calm, cool demeanor and his lack of questioning. He wasn't like, will you call me back? Can I have one of your cars? What are you guys doing? Not happening. All right. Although Peterson initially said he had spent the day golfing, he later told the police that he had gone to fish for sturgeon at the Berkeley Marina. At 2:15, he left a message for Laci stating, hey, beautiful. It's 2:15. I'm always amazed at husbands when they theoretically have killed their wives, always leaving these gorgeous messages, because I don't remember any time my ex-husband ever called me up and said, hey, beautiful. He's like, hi, I'm going to be home later. Hey, beautiful. I'm leaving Berkeley, and then I love you, all that kind of crap. Peterson stated they went to fishing about 90 miles from the couple's Modesto home. Detectives immediately launched a search. Yeah, they did. All right. So anyway, they began to suspect him, and he was on their radar. Let's put it that way. All right. So, okay. So eventually, when did they find the bodies? I'm going to get into. They found the bodies. This is she went missing on. Hold on a second. She went missing. Well, December 24th. I'm sorry, it's Christmas Eve. I'm so smart, aren't I? Okay, but her body was not recovered until. Let me find the exact date. Okay, her body on April. Okay, wait a minute. On April 13th. A couple walking their dog found the decomposing body of a small baby in a marshy area of the San Francisco Bay. A day later, they found the torso of a pregnant woman. And so they know these are the two. So it took January, February, March. It's like over 4 months before they found the bodies of Laci and the baby, Connor. Okay. And they were found in the San Francisco Bay, which was oddly where he went fishing. Okay, so that's kind of the basics of it. Now, before I go on with the rest of the story and what all the issues are, I just want to point out one of the points I'm going to make about the story, which is when you're trying to analyze his guilt or innocence and you're looking at what is out there and available, people's opinions, the evidence, the court documents, the defense team, whatever. How are you understanding this case? And how do you look at the physical and circumstantial evidence and come up with an idea whether this guy was convicted for good reason or whether the jury screwed up? Now, before I get into the other details of the case, which then put everything in an interesting light, let me go forth on what I'm going to say about the three people behind me and what they have to say. Now, This is Dr. Grande. Now, Dr. Grande has a hugely popular channel. Okay, so let's go to Dr. Grande and talk about him. All right, so here is a statement of Dr. Grande. What kind of doctor is Dr. Grande? Dr. Grande is a professional counselor, educator, and content creator who specializes in personality disorders, addiction, recovery from trauma, psychopathology, and assessment. I find this interesting. The most interesting point is, and this is the point I want to make. And okay, first of all, some people attack him for his education. Okay, he graduated from Excelsior College with a bachelor's in psychology. I also graduated from Excelsior College with a bachelor's in liberal arts. It's an external degree program. I had been to so many colleges because I was kind of like a shitty student, and I got bored and I couldn't find anything I wanted to do. And eventually I got my degree at Excelsior in liberal arts, because what else can you get it in when you have so many different colleges you've been to? And they would allow you to put all your credits together in one place, and you could take GRE exams. And I did take exams and got my degree. I got my master's from Boston University, and he got his master's from Wilmington University in community counseling. Now, Wilmington University does have a physical location, as does Boston University, where I got my master's. But I got my master's via the internet. And I'm not saying that it isn't a legitimate master's. I'm saying I thought it kind of sucked in general. And I spent a lot of money, but I got a master's, and I did the work, but it just I didn't think highly of it. I don't know how Wilmington University does it. I don't know if he went there personally. I personally think he probably did external, but that's okay. If you're doing the work, you're learning. I learned so much. I did all my studies on profiling on my own. I read 400 books on profiling, crime scene analysis, homicide analysis, psychopathology, everything. I studied 400 books, and I do not lie that I read every single bit of those. And then when I went to my master's program, I didn't have to read hardly anything. And the guys who were in the professors went, "Oh my God, it's Pat Brown," because I'd already been in the field for years. So they already knew I knew so much. And the studies I did there didn't even equal all the studies I'd done on my own. So I don't have an issue with self-taught. I don't have an issue with external degrees, except for the fact that sometimes it's just the way you can, when you're busy in life, you can get it. Then he got his doctorate in philosophy. Mind you, it says counselor, education, and supervision, not in psychology, not in psychiatry. He got a doctor of philosophy from Regent University, which again is, I believe, as far as I know, an external degree program. So some people will really attack Dr. Grande and say, you never really went to college to study to become a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I just disagree in the sense that, learning is learning. And I don't have a great necessarily impression over people who've got their doctorate in psychiatry. I don't necessarily think they're any better than somebody who didn't get their doctor in psychiatry the same way. So he's a therapist, but I wanted to point out he's a therapist. This is actually the important point. Therapy, psychologists and psychiatrists and therapists who work to help people with their own psychological problems. They work in the community, in community therapy. They serve a great purpose, but they also want to help people. They want to help them become whole again. They want to help them have a good life. They want to get them off of addictive stuff and addictive mentalities. Bully for him. And I've seen his older videos, and he does a lot about therapy, and I think he's great on that. I absolutely do. What this does do is, I will point this out. All right, so this is what somebody said. I have to agree with most people here. This is a Reddit thing. He clearly states before every single video that he is not diagnosing anyone's mental health. That is true. He does that. But merely giving his observations on certain people that have been involved in crimes. He also states it's his opinion, but for the most part, he does give a play-by-play of crimes in a way that anyone can understand. Yes, he does. But one of my biggest problems that I have with the way he analyzes crimes is I know he does very little research. Sorry, Dr. Grande. You do very little research on each one of the crimes. You have a lot of content, so you do like quick stuff. And I don't believe you watch tons of videos and read books. I believe you do Wikipedia and maybe something else, and you go forth. And you comment on the psychology of things. I do not believe you have an understanding of criminal behavior. I do not believe that. I believe you have an understanding of therapy. And the difference between understanding criminal behavior and wanting to help people therapeutically is that you have a soft heart, which is not. A lot of criminals do not. You know, when you have a soft heart, you fall for a lot of crap from criminals. Let me point out one of my favorite books. Hold on a second. Got them down here. All right. My favorite book, one of my favorite books of all time, is Inside the Criminal Mind by Stanton E. Samanow, PhD. Now, Stanton E. Samanow, just to let you know, this is this dude here. He is a clinical psychologist in a private practice in Alexandria, Virginia. He was on President Reagan's task force on victims of crime. During his 8 years as a research psychologist at St. Elizabeth's Hospital in Washington, D.C., that's a hospital for the criminally insane. He basically learned a whole lot. Okay, so he studied the criminal personality, and he learned how criminals really think. And because he wasn't trying to treat them, he wasn't trying to cure them, which he realized that he couldn't. He became very realistic about the mind of criminals. I do not believe that Dr. Grande is there. I believe he has a softness about him, about criminal minds, and he keeps downplaying their behaviors. Now, look at what else this person said. That's not it. Hold on a second. Yeah, okay, where is it? Okay, all right. Now, he also, he often points out the terrible, terrible flaws within the justice system. I think he does an excellent job in helping people understand just how badly the justice system is flawed, and how so often people are sent to prison, often for life, without having the evidence sufficient enough to warrant this. Bingo. He's very much anti-death penalty. He'll say that the jury screwed up over and over again. The reason he thinks the jury screwed up is not the same reason I believe they screwed up. I believe they screwed up because they don't know what the hell they're doing, because they're 12 people off a bus stop who have no education or training. He believes they screwed up because the justice system has manipulated them, and therefore they convict people they shouldn't convict. He's very highly critical of the justice system and the death penalty. And because of that, it colors his viewpoints, as it does with this particular case, where he has some interesting observations or beliefs about what kind of guy Scott Peterson is and whether he should have been convicted or not. So I just want you to understand, he's a therapist. He's not a criminal psychologist. He's a therapist, and he has a soft heart for people and saying, hey, maybe it's not as bad as they think. Maybe he's not really that bad a guy. So I think you have to keep that in mind when he analyzes criminal cases. Also, the fact that he's not a criminologist, he's not a profiler. Unfortunately, I think he should stay with psychology, but he went into crime because crime makes you a whole lot of money. And so he does all these criminal cases with what I consider a very short amount of research. And then he throws in his psychological theories and his ideas of the justice system, and that's what you get. Should you listen to him? Sometimes he's got good stuff. I'm not saying he's a terrible guy. I'm saying but you want to understand where he's coming from. Now, Ken Maines is a retired detective. He's a lot more aware of what goes on. He talks a lot about how, the police methodologies, what cases work. He's a lot more down-to-earth guy. He's a very down-to-earth guy. How much effort does he put into each one of his research on the cases? I'd say he puts way more in than Dr. Grande. He does. But as he points out, at some point, I'm not putting more effort in. And I get that because I always tell people, you're not paying me. I'm not going to spend 200 hours on a case. I'm not. I'm not part of any team. I'm not writing a book. I'm not spending 200 hours. But I spend way more than Dr. Grande, and I think he spends more than Dr. Grande, trying to at least get enough information that's at least gives him a better viewpoint of what's happening. As far as Stephanie Harlow goes, Stephanie Harlow is a YouTuber. She has no training in criminal profiling or detective work or psychology or any of that crap. But I give her credit because she does a really good job of just getting a tremendous amount of information. I'll put her links below. I'm going to put all their links below on this case. She did a three-part series on Scott Peterson, and lots of great information that other places didn't put together. So she really works hard to get all this information together. She's aware that she wants corroboration. In other words, she says, I can only get this from one source, so I'm not comfortable with it. I do want to tell Stephanie that you can get it from 10 sources, and you still shouldn't be comfortable because the other 9 sources probably just stole the information from the first source, because that's the way the media works today. They don't bother to do their own work, so they just steal other people's crap. And so therefore you can see it in, oh my God, there's 50 media outlets that all say this is true, and it's still a lie. So gotta be a little careful, Stephanie, on that, because not necessarily so. But she does present some really good information, and so I actually did listen to her entire 3 series. I like the way she presents it. I know that other cases she disagrees with me because she's not a profiler. She's giving her opinion, but on the other hand, I've seen her do some pretty good profiling on certain things, and so I think, I would hire her and then train her a little bit more, and maybe she'd be a really good profiler. So I'm gonna show something she said later on in this case, which I think is very, very, very interesting. So, all right, and that's what I want to say about these 3. Don't throw them out because they don't encompass everything perfect. They each have a background and a way of doing things. And if you go to enough resources, I read books from killers and I read books from the victims, so I can see where the information is, from the defense, from the prosecution. I try to see both sides because I'm trying to see where the truth lies, and not just say, oh, this person's this, and therefore I'm not going to listen to them, or I didn't agree with them on this case, therefore I'm never going to listen to them again. We disagree on the West Memphis 3 case. He thinks they're innocent. I think they're guilty as hell. I don't throw Ken Maines out because he disagrees with me on that. He still has valuable information and valuable insight, and I like to hear how he thinks, even if I don't agree with everything he thinks. And I'm sure he thinks the same about me. At least I hope he still likes me. Anyway, so that's where I want to go with those. Now I'm going to go through the case now, and I'm going to start with Dr. Grande because I find his viewpoint sounds very interesting, and he brings forth the prosecution and the defense, and then I have commentary on what that actually means, which is going to be quite different from what he thinks. But before I do that, let me just check the comments. Oh goodness, let me just check here for a second. All right, let's see what you have to say. Back here, I'm trying. We've got so many comments here. Benny says Harlow has great lipsticks. Lipstick. She does. She got better lipstick than me. She got better lips than me too. Okay. But he says that she puts a lot of her personal opinion in it. This is true, but actually, some of it is evidence-based. You say it's not evidence-based. Some of it actually isn't too bad. So, again, take it with a grain of salt. But I think some of her stuff is kind of, sometimes she kind of has a good beat on things. All right, so let's see what else we have here. I'm going through this huge list of people here. Many more people have arrived, and I'm not going to go through everybody. This is true. I think that Ken Maines is pretty solid on logic. I think most of the time he is. I think I've disagreed with him a few times. I've disagreed because, we do sometimes. Why do they even have the death penalty in California? I don't know. I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but yeah. So he's not on death row now. He's getting dates instead. Okay, Benny, Scott Peterson is a pathological liar, among other things. I just want to be the first to write it. Okay, Benny, I'm letting you write it. All right, I'm going to talk about, is he a pathological liar? Is he a psychopath? What is this guy? Is he a decent? Okay, he's not a decent guy. He had affairs, and even the defense admits that. I'll be talking about that. But just because he has affairs, does that mean he's a psychopath? Or does that mean he would kill his wife and his little unborn baby? So All right. So I like this, Joe. I've met many highly educated and academically qualified people who haven't got a damn clue about what they're talking about. This is true. Academia has its place, but there's no substitute for life experience. Yeah, and on the other hand, there's like these two ends. It's like super academia, and there's just like you haven't got a clue. You just start a YouTube channel, and like last week you were a waitress or a carpenter, but neither one is necessarily good or bad. It's really what they come forth with. I mean, sometimes people in academia are great, sometimes they're idiots, and the same on the other end of the spectrum there. So Lila says you can learn a lot more out of college than in. Self-talk can be much better. I think that colleges and university are profit mills. Well, I will tell you, I spent all my life self-educating, and I've been attacked for that. But as I pointed out, I read 400 books when it came down to studying this. And that 400, I put the quotes around it because it's probably more, but I just came up with that number. I had so many books. Every time I read a book and it said, so-and-so said, I bought that book too. And so I read everything I could get my hands on. And when I went to a master's program, I think I read 12 books in a master's program, but on my own, I read 400. So, college has its purpose. When you have great professors, they can inspire and they can help you understand things. You can also have stupid professors, and I've had those too. And I'm like, I know more than that professor. And it's just class is just, oh, what a waste of time. Let me try to get an A, So life is about learning, and how you learn. My opinion is I don't care how you learn. I don't care if you go to Harvard and get a PhD, but you learned amazing things. Well, I'm bully for you. That was great. If you never went to college once in your life and you learned amazing things, bully for you. So I'm kind of like that. But so I believe that. So yeah, so many great comments here about different peoples. All right. So anyway, okay. So and Joe isn't fond of Stephanie. Her opinions are often wayward and detract from the subject she is otherwise presenting very well. Again, she is who she is. She's not a profiler. She's not a detective. And I do have issues with a lot of these YouTubers who go into the profiling aspects of things, and I cringe and I go, and I haven't seen all of her stuff, so she may do some of those things that make me cringe as well. I think that what I want people to understand is that she presents some good material. Understand she is not a profiler. Understand that a lot of YouTubers who present true crime have no clue about profiling or detective work. So just accept what they're presenting and just ignore the other crap, because but some people will fall right for it, and they're like, oh yeah, they their analysis is great. And I'm like, no, it isn't. Not even close. So just understand what your hi Tammy. Tammy's here now. Oh yes, you did. You made it to a live show. Great. I'm glad. All right. So now let me get into the issues here. I want to start with Dr. Grande. All right. So what happened is that he's doing the prosecution's evidence. They believe that Scott strangled or smothered Laci on the 23rd or 24th, and that is up for grabs when she was actually murdered. The claim is she was murdered on the 24th because supposedly she did her hair and she listened to the show. That is not proof. I'm sorry, that's not proof. She could have been killed on the 23rd. There's an issue about what clothing she was wearing. Like if he killed her on the 23rd, she would have been wearing the 23rd clothes, but she was found in different clothes. Does that mean a guy doesn't know how to pull pants off of somebody and change the pants so it looks like it's the next day? Does it mean he can't listen to Martha Stewart and say, oh, we were listening to Martha Stewart? If he's a little clever, he could do that. Don't know that he did, but 23rd, 24th, they don't know which one. Then he dumped her body in the San Francisco Bay. And let me show you where he dumped her body. And this to me is very, very interesting. And this is a huge part of the prosecution. All right, so let me show you the map. Okay, so they live in where that the right little red thing is. It says Modesto, and where you see that left red thing, that's the Berkeley Marina. So he bought this boat, and he's supposedly going to an hour and 23 minutes on the road or more, depending on which way you go. And you'll get there. And so he's got his new boat. It's a smallish boat, and he's going to the bay to do what he calls sturgeon fishing, which apparently he's never really done before, and has bought some stuff he didn't actually use. It's a little confusing. And people say, why didn't he, with a new boat, just go to a lake nearby or someplace nearby and test the thing out? Why on Christmas Eve would you go an hour and 23 or more minutes all the way over to the San Francisco Bay, where he spent an hour there, only an hour, and then drove all the way back? Interesting stuff. Okay, so now before he went there, by the way, so he bought this boat like in the last month, and here he is. That's a storage unit, and apparently he has a little office in there as well. So he supposedly arrives at the storage unit, does a little stuff on his computer there, and then he hooks up the boat to the truck, and then and this is the boat up close, and then he goes off to the Berkeley Marina and has his fishing trip. Now they claim that he dumped her body there. Okay. Now, one of the issues is, well, did he really dump her body there? Well, now let's take a look. All right. So if this is the picture, you see the Berkeley Marina at the bottom? If you look up a little further, 4 months later, her body shows up where it says Laci. And then a little further up, it says Connor. So Connor's body showed up, and then the next day, Laci's body showed up. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in the trial about the movements of the tide and so on and so forth. And of course, how much they were weighted down with weights. So how long would it take the bodies to set them? She ended up with no arms and no head. And I think part of a leg and another leg with a foot missing. So she'd been in that water a damn long time. There was no sign of her body being cut up. So it was all more a fact of the body pulled apart under the water, especially if there were weights on her, pulled apart, and then all this damage that was done in the sea and the salt water and the animals and the fish and all that crap. Eventually, 4 months later, the body had drifted and ended up in those locations. Now, let's go back and look at this. All right. What are the chances? This is one of the big parts of the whole thing. What are the chances that she lives in Modesto? Let's look at the chances that somebody else kidnapped, abducted her, and killed her. That they managed to put the body. They drove also an hour and 20 minutes to San Francisco Bay, and lo and behold, they put the body exactly where Scott went fishing. What are the chances? What a quinky dink. That's a big issue. But anyway, that's the theory is that the police had that he killed her in the house, put her in the back of the truck, took her to the storage unit, hooked up the boat, transferred her body to the boat, took her to the marina. I have a picture here. Sorry. Over at the marina. This is not his boat. Confused the hell out of me because I'm like, that doesn't look like his boat. But this is a marina where you would back your boat into, and then you would get on the boat and leave. That's a marina. All right. That's the theory that they had. Now, what else? There was some hair in pliers on the boat. And Dr. Grande says that's not very convincing. Well, apparently, there's a whole argument about the fact that he himself did not tell Laci about the boat. And the defense says, of course, he told her about the boat. But Laci never mentioned it to anybody else. And it was not a massive purchase, but it was a big purchase. And, so there's claims that she knew about it, but then there's claims that she didn't know about it. But apparently there is some of her hair in pliers on the boat. And she's an 8-month pregnant woman who, either doesn't know about the boat or does. Did she want to check the boat out? And so she climbed into the boat and her hair fell out on some pliers? Okay. We don't know what it means, but it's interesting. And then there's issues about dogs picking up the scent at the marina. And then he goes on about how the dogs suck and they weren't properly, it was contaminated stuff and they weren't properly trained. Okay, maybe. He said that the expert of tides and body moved in water. He said that during the trial, the guy was not qualified he didn't do a great job of describing the tides and he wasn't qualified. So therefore it's not so, which doesn't mean it's not so. But because clearly the body was in the water for at least 4 months and did drift up to the shore. I mean, that's pretty much a fact. And whether the tide guy got it right or not, or he screwed up in court, I don't know, but still, body in water, body shows up. Although the defense has another viewpoint, and I'll tell you that one in a minute. So he says there was no physical evidence at all. Okay, there is physical evidence. One of the physical evidence is that her body ended up in the water and he had a boat. Okay, so that's physical evidence. You know, you can call that circumstantial, but that's pretty physical too, because the only way her body could get in the water was on a boat. So you would have to say somebody else had a boat and chose that exact location to dump the body where Scott just happened to be fishing. So no, I'd say that's a level of physical evidence. Also, there was cement issues, and this is a big, huge argument over cement. That he had made a cement anchor for his boat, and that there was evidence that he bought this big bag of cement, and he made other anchors, but they were missing in action. The defense says he never made those anchors. He was using the cement for something else. The prosecution says, oh, no, those were the cement anchors he made specifically for dumping his wife in the bay. Neither side is able to actually prove it, but he did buy a bag of cement that didn't appear to be used for something else, and he did make a cement anchor. So did he make more cement anchors to dump the body in the bay? All right. Now, the next thing he gets on, Dr. Grande gets on, he said the police relied too much about his behavior not being what they thought it should be when somebody's wife goes missing. Okay, this is a huge issue for Dr. Grande. He believes that, Scott Peterson acted weird. When his wife went missing and the police came by, he was deadpan about it. He wasn't anxious. He wasn't upset. He wasn't freaking out. He was kind of like, yeah, whatever. He didn't seem to be all that crazy about her going missing and his unborn son going missing. Kind of strange. Now, check this out, which he doesn't mention. When Laci went missing, her cell phone was not in the house. So he called her on the way home from the marina to say, I'm on my way. Beautiful. But when he got home and found her not there, he did not call her phone. At least that's the evidence I have. He did not make a phone call to her phone, ever. Eventually, if you look down at 1224, if you look down, okay, so you see the yellow line there? Scott should have called Laci's cell phone before calling Sharon, but he didn't. He made other calls. But then at 5:45, he does call Sharon, that's Laci's mom, to tell her his wife is missing. But until then, he never called her phone. Now, isn't that the first thing you would do? Well, eventually her phone was found in the vehicle right outside, which means that, she didn't take it with her wherever she was going, which I find interesting too. I don't know if she took her phone normally when she walked the dog, but man, I do this all the time. When I go out, I go feed the animals. I'm like, I take this with me just in case an animal kicks me in the head and I'm lying in the field. I can, at least call 911. Did she never take her phone when a pregnant woman walking her dog? Does she not normally take her phone? I don't know the answer to this, but her phone's in the vehicle. Okay, wait a minute. Let me just stop right there because I hadn't thought about this before. If she went to walk her dog and she never left the house in the vehicle, why the hell is her phone in the vehicle anyway? Does that even make sense? That's interesting, isn't it? Did he just want to get her phone out of the house but didn't know what to do with it, so he chucked it in the vehicle? I don't remember anybody talking about this, but I don't understand why her phone would be in the vehicle if she didn't go to the store or do anything. If she got kidnapped out of the vehicle, yeah, but she didn't. Her purse was in the house, keys are in the house. So she goes to walk her dog but puts her phone in the vehicle? Okay, this is why the police were suspicious of this guy. He had weird attitude. He wasn't interested in what was happening to find his missing wife and soon-to-be-born baby. He didn't make the phone calls in a way you'd expect. So they immediately said, something wrong with this dude. And they honed in on it. Now, here's what Dr. Grande says. All right. He says his behavior was ruled against him which doesn't appear to be supported by scientific evidence. He goes on about this scientific evidence. He's really big into scientific evidence, but this one makes me laugh. He's like, okay, so how many people out of the millions in the United States have their wives go missing? Well, very, very few. Therefore, we don't have a good take on how people behave when their wives go missing. Okay, that's probably true. But the police have worked more of these cases than you, Dr. Grande, where people have murdered somebody that one of their relatives. They're murderers. They're whatever they're doing, kidnappers. They're used to these guys and their behavior, and they have a reason to think, well, something's off with this case. And he claims, oh, well, they have no business even thinking that because they're not trained in psychology. That is true. And I believe in better training. I agree with Dr. Grande on that. I think that detectives do need better training, and I'm hoping to provide that myself in the future with my new program for detectives, which teaches them about psychopathology and certain behaviors of psychopaths so that they do recognize things and are more aware of things. But he's saying, well, they didn't get it, so therefore they have no business even thinking. Well, Ken Maines will disagree with that. He's like, hey, I've been a detective a long time, and when a person acts a certain way, we detectives have been on cases. We know when something's not quite right. And we have a good reason to think we got to look at this guy more. That was not a wrong thing that they did. They had a reason to look at Scott Peterson because they thought the guy's a little freaking creepy. All right, so, and he's not acting right. So then he says that that police were not being open to the truth. The truth, or what is the truth? He's claiming that the truth could be that he didn't do it. They weren't open to that he didn't do it. And he allowed his behavior to direct the investigation, even though they had no mental health training. No, they looked at evidence, and the evidence was the guy's not acting right. And that is how you pursue an investigation. They did look at other people, by the way, Dr. Grande, and you haven't done enough research. They did look at many, many other possibilities, but they of course, were going to look at Scott Peterson because he was the last one to see her. He's acting weird. Oh, and what about the affair? Did I not mention that? Okay, let's talk about the affair. I was going to get there, but I just thought, wait. Why, who is that? Oh, yeah, whoops, where'd she go? That's his girlfriend. All right, that's Amber Frey. So in the month before Laci goes missing, this is Amber Frey. She's a massage therapist who he hooked up with. Now, a lot of people say his mistress. That is not fair to Amber Frey. She was not his mistress. She didn't know he was married. She thought somebody introduced her to him, thought he was a great guy. So she's like, oh my God, really decent looking guy. Got a good job. He seems fun and friendly. Oh my God. So she hooked up with him and of course slept with him. So she's his now girlfriend, she thinks. He's my boyfriend, she thinks. All right. But he doesn't tell her he's married. He does not. But on around December 9th, this is like 3 weeks before Laci is murdered, this is what he says. In an interview with Matt Lauer, who is now on the outs because he screwed up. But anyway, I digress. Amber Frey revealed that Scott had initially told her that he was single and had never been married. However, a few weeks into the courtship, on December 9th, 2002, Scott lied again when he told Amber that he was a widow and he'd lost his wife. And he used the term, lost his wife. And he wasn't going to be able to be with her. This would be the first Christmas without her. Now, Ken Maines will say, talk about premeditation. He's already talking about his wife going missing. Not just that he's getting divorced or that they're breaking up, which is a normal thing that a married man who wants to have a fling on the side or wants to get himself something will often say, I'm in a bad marriage. We're not getting along. She sleeps in another room. We don't even sleep together anymore. We're working on our divorce. And that may all be bull, but that's what he's going to say. So that you go, oh, I know people who are separated, or they'll say we're separated. And you think, well, I can date the guy because he's, separated. Well, I always had a rule after I got divorced. I'm like, I will never date a guy who can't hand me the paperwork that says I am divorced, because I know these fake stories. But he didn't even do that. He didn't say I'm separated, I'm breaking up, my marriage is bad. He actually had the gall to say, I lost my wife, indicating that, yes, he had been married. But only, mind you, he only confessed to her after he got caught. And her friend was going to tell her, so he had to beat the friend to the punch. So he only told her the truth. I say truth because he had to. But then he didn't tell the truth, of course. He told another lie, which was his wife was dead, not that his wife was still alive and they were living together. And we're going to spend the first Christmas, we're not going to be together. And this is what Ken Main said, maybe premeditation. He's already planning to lose his wife and not spend Christmas with her. And lo and behold, she disappears on Christmas Eve. That is strong evidence in a court of law as premeditation. Now, then he says, Dr. Grande says, I do not know what to make of Scott Peterson's demeanor. And that's with years of training and experience. You've had years of training and experience and you don't know what kind of behavior he has. You don't get what he's doing. You don't understand that. Now, do I say you're a crappy therapist because you don't understand psychopathy? Let me point out the next thing here. This is one of my, oh shoot, I just pulled out the, darn it, that was my page. Ah, crap. Okay, hold on a second. Where is it? I got to find it now because I just pulled out, that was my bookmark. Okay, where's my, hold on a second. He's famous. This is Without Conscience by Robert Hare, PhD. Robert Hare, in case you don't know, he is the one who devised the psychopathy checklist. And he says here, let's see, he's done research on psychopathy for 25 years. Professor emeritus of psychology at the University of British Columbia, Canada. Developer of one of the world's most widely used tools for assessing psychopathy. All right, and this is true. Now hold on a second. Let me find the list because I just screwed it up. I can't believe I did that. Hold on a second. Where's my list? Where are you? I sort of know the list by heart, but then again, hold on. Be patient here, folks. Can't believe I can't find it. Oh man, I hate it when I do that. All right, it's got to be here. All right, so they basically talk about life. Here's part of them. Impulsive. Well, he had lots of impulsive stuff that he did. Poor behavior controls. You think he's cheating on his wife. He cheated on his wife 5 times during their marriage. He does have poor behavior controls. Need for excitement. Yeah, apparently he's bored with just being married. He wanted something more exciting. Lack of responsibility, I think. Was he being a responsible husband? No, he wasn't. Let's see, what else? Early behavior problems. Now, his family will say he didn't have early behavior problems. That's because they raised him with so much entitlement, and he was the golden boy, and he could do no wrong. That I'm going to say there were early behavior problems, but they covered them all up. And then we have, I can't find his darn thing. Where is it? Glibness. Oh, he's very glib. He just comes up with stories like, he's very glib. He's good at that. Deceitful and manipulative. You think so? He's a lying dog. He deceived his wife. He deceived Amber Frey. He manipulated his wife and he manipulated Amber Frey. Okay, that's interesting. A lack of empathy. A lack of empathy. Do you think he cared about his wife's feelings, that he was cheating on her? Do you think he cared about Amber Frey's feelings? No, he didn't. He has a lack of empathy. A lack of remorse or guilt. He never seemed to feel guilty about anything that he did. Okay, what else? Egocentric and grandiose. Oh yeah, he thought he was something else. He did. And glib and superficial. Oh, here we go. I finally found it. Key symptoms: glib and superficial, egocentric and grandiose, lack of remorse or guilt, lack of empathy, deceitful and manipulative, shallow emotions. What did the police feel when they came there? That he had shallow emotions. His wife. We're not talking about his wife was like, I don't know, his wife spent too much money, so he let it go. His wife was missing. Clearly something was wrong. She was completely missing. Something had happened to her and to his son. And he didn't have any emotions, shallow emotions. That's what the detectives picked up on. And impulsive, poor behavior controls, need for excitement, lack of responsibility, early behavior problems, and adult antisocial behavior. Okay. Read this, Dr. Grande. I don't know how you missed it, because I'm going to say he's a psychopath. 100% psychopath. Absolutely a psychopath. Because he had his, and this is kind of funny, Ken Maines didn't get the research on this one, but he said both Laci and Scott came from middle class, normal backgrounds. No, he didn't. This guy had his parents were really messed up. His own mother gave away a bunch of her children. And then then she married his father, and then he became the golden boy. Meanwhile, there was another older boy, I think it was his father's, and they sent him away. So he was the only one left, and then he could do no wrong. And he was really creepy. I mean, and the police picked up on this. Interestingly, Dr. Grande doesn't pick up on this and says, well, yeah, he cheated on his wife and stuff, but doesn't mean he's a killer. It doesn't mean he doesn't even talk about psychopathy, which I find fascinating. Now, I want you to listen to this from Stephanie Harlow, and I had to really enjoy it. Let me see if I can find the right spot here. Okay, now I'm going to put it right here. Listen to what she has to say. Hopefully, you can hear it properly.
I received a couple comments on part 2 of the video that said I was too rough on Scott's parents, and I respectfully disagree with you. The reason Scott Peterson turned out the way he did was because his parents constantly made excuses for him his entire life. To cheat on your pregnant wife and have your parents publicly go on a national television show and say, this isn't anything that doesn't happen every day. It's not out of the ordinary. He didn't do anything, that 95% of the men out there aren't doing, is absolutely ridiculous and unacceptable as a parent. It shows me how Scott was raised. He was the golden child. He was placed on a pedestal. He could do no wrong. And if he did do anything wrong, his parents would make excuses for it. They would justify why he did something wrong, or how it's okay that he did that wrong, because that's what normal kids do. So you've raised a child who now thinks, even as an adult, that he can do no wrong, that the only person who matters is him. What he wants, what he desires, how he wants life to be is the only thing that matters. Scott Peterson is the main actor. Everyone around Scott Peterson in his life are just supporting characters who can be written out of the script. When you raise a child with so much entitlement and so little consequences, you put a monster into the world who believes that their own desires, their own feelings, what they want are so much more important than anything else.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. Absolutely. My book, which you can find on Amazon, is called Killing for Sport, Inside the Minds of Serial Killers. Now, he's not a serial killer, but I have a whole thing here on psychopathy. And one of the things I always say about psychopaths is you're either useful or you're in the way. Useful or in the way. For Scott Peterson, he was the only one that mattered, and she had it right. That was a great profile of Scott Peterson and a great profile of his parents. So kudos to you on that one. The only person that mattered to Scott was Scott, and what Scott wanted to get. Now, one thing that Ken Maines says is he thinks that sex sometimes people say, why do people commit crimes, sex or money? He says, well, that he was like into Amber so much that drive went in, and he was willing to kill off his wife for Amber. I don't believe that. I agree with him that that's not a good enough motive. No, it was about, he didn't like his lifestyle in general. Amber he was using too. He said later on he never loved Amber. Well, I don't think he did. I think she was his new toy, but he was tired of the old toy, and he didn't want to get stuck with that baby toy. So he threw his toys out of the crib to get a new toy. That's a psychopath. You're either useful or in the way, and only person that matters is Scott. Nobody else matters. And so now he would think, well, does he care about his parents? No, he doesn't. But his parents are useful still. If his parents turned on him, he might be one of those that does family annihilator thing with his own parents. But instead, he family annihilated his wife and child. So I think Stephanie that was a really, really good profile, Stephanie. Give you credit on that one. So now we have him having this affair. Now, what's interesting about the affair, which has really caught people's attention, oh, they're so happy. They're at a Christmas party. Now, the National Enquirer, apparently, who say is one of the best, has been one of the best crime media outlets you can get. Really, they have some good information, and I actually have done work for them because I actually posted when I did when I did profile things, I put my entire profile in. So anyway, this is a Christmas party. There's Scott with Amber having a great time. Meanwhile, his wife, his pregnant wife, is at another Christmas party. He told her he couldn't come to her Christmas party because he was going to be out of town. Yeah, he was out of town with Amber going to a different Christmas party. The guy's a slime bag, absolute slime bag. So consequently, hold on a second. Yeah, consequently, the reason the police thought this guy did it was because, my God, Dr. Grande, his behavior did tell them that he had a motive, that he wasn't interested in his marriage, he wasn't interested in his kid, he was a psychopath, he was a pathological liar, and two of the most interesting pathological lies that he told was that he told his Amber that he wasn't even married, and then he has lost his wife, and then when the vigil for his wife came up. Now the defense says it didn't happen during the vigil, but apparently the claim is that during the vigil, he called Amber and told her he was in Paris at the Eiffel Tower with his friends, as opposed to the fact he was at a vigil. Now, the defense team says it wasn't actually at the vigil. That happened earlier in the day. But still, he's telling his girlfriend he's in Paris when he's not in Paris. So a guy is a freaking pathological liar, which is a number one trait of serial killers. I'm sorry, of psychopaths. Psychopaths are pathological liars. And he was all of that. He pathologically lied to everybody. All right. So then he goes on to say, there are no patterns or baseline to base conclusions about his demeanor. He's correct about that. One thing we want to do when we try to determine somebody's behaviors is to look at their baseline. In other words, if somebody doesn't cry, doesn't mean they don't care about somebody. It may be that they just don't tend to cry anyway. Somebody could cry ridiculously and think, God, they're exaggerating, but that's what they always do. So you want a baseline for things before you say that person's acting in a weird manner. Well, it's true in the first days, they didn't have a baseline for him, but still they had red flags. And soon after that, in the days after that, they had the baseline. The guy's a cheating bastard and he lies to everybody. I'm going to say they had him nailed. All right. So now we get to the defense. All right, one of the things that the defense team says, and by the way, the one link he has, the one major link he has underneath his YouTube channel is scottpetersonappeal.org. Well, that is the defense team. He is very pro-defense because he doesn't like the justice system in the United States. So he reads their stuff and then says, oh, see, that's probably true, or it could be true. Well, defense teams are always very slick, especially 20 years later. They're really slick and they're really good at manipulating what you think. And they put stuff up there and it sounds really good. So he says, here's a couple of things he said. Witnesses had seen Laci after Scott went on his fishing trips. And this has been a thing that's been out there, especially from the defense team, that Scott left on his fishing trip. And meanwhile, Laci went to walk the dog after he left. And if that's true, if people saw Laci walking the dog after he left, they're correct. Then she would be alive and Scott did not kill her. All right. So supposedly, according to the defense team, 12 people saw Laci walking her dog after Scott left on the trip. Interestingly enough, though, none of those people appeared in court. Now, why is that? Now, he talks about that the defense team, which at that time was Mark Garagos. I don't have anything nice to say about Mark Garagos. We have a little feud. Anyway, we used to do television shows together, and I used to kind of a creepy character. And anyway, but Mark Garagos, I'm not saying he's not a good defense attorney. So anyway, Mark Garagos didn't put any of those witnesses on the stand. Now, they're using that as a reason for the appeal. Well, since he screwed up, he was it's a failure in the defense, so he needs a new trial because he should have put those witnesses on the stand. Well, the reason he didn't do it was because the witnesses sucked. You don't put witnesses on the stand who you don't think are really, going to be believed. So one of the problems was some of the witnesses said they saw a woman walking a golden retriever, but the description of the woman wasn't actually a proper description of Laci, and turned out there was another woman in the area that walked a golden retriever. So that all went to hell. Then there were people who said they saw her, and they weren't actually, they had the wrong clothing that they claimed she was in. That was what was in a poster. So you kind of wondered if they just took that information off the poster. Some people just said they saw her, even if it was not necessarily that day that they saw her. And on top of that, there's some people just called in to say they saw her when they didn't. And there was also Laci's friends who said she hadn't walked the dog in weeks because of her pregnancy. She was so far along in her pregnancy, it was uncomfortable for her to walk the dog, and they hadn't seen her out. So you see, there's all these reasons why Garagos didn't put those witnesses on the stand, because apparently they weren't very good witnesses. Then he says, Scott had no history of anger or violence. It's not likely to commit this kind of crime. Oh, bullcrap. Lots of people who don't show anger prior will kill do family annihilation all the time. So Dr. Grande, you don't understand criminals, and you need to, if you're going to talk about criminal behaviors, you need to understand and spend a little more time understanding criminals and how they actually do behave. And then he said he didn't leave any evidence behind, and he did it in broad daylight. That is true, and that is an interesting point. So I'll give you that, Dr. Grande. Now, the reason he might not have left evidence behind is that if he didn't stab her or shoot her, you don't have blood evidence. So if you just smother her with a pillow in the bed, which I think may be the way it went down, then you have just a person who's not moving. Then you pick up the non-moving person. You put the non-moving person in a tarp or whatever. You pick it up, that non-moving person. You put them in the back of your truck. You take your truck over to where your boat is. You move the body from the truck to the boat, and then you take the body out. And he also, supposedly there was a tarp that had a lot of gasoline on it later, so that confused the dogs. So maybe he just got lucky, and that sometimes happens. But again, there was no blood evidence. That's not, and nobody saw him commit the crime. Well, of course not, because if you're going to go out in your boat and dump a body, you don't dump your body when somebody else's boat is going by. You wait. Now, he went in the middle of the day, and you wonder why. Well, first of all, going in the middle of the night is you got to explain that one. You can't say, well, I went fishing. When did you go fishing? Oh, 1 o'clock in the morning. That's usually when you dump. Really questionable, So you go during the day when you're supposed to be fishing, and other people may be out there, but I don't know much about fishing and sturgeon fishing, but I don't know. I always thought the morning and the late afternoon hours are better for fishing. I don't know. I don't fish, but he's kind of there midday. Now, he's out in the bay. And clearly what he's going to do is make sure that he waits till all the boats are far, far away. Nobody sees him. He can wait. He's not in a rush. He can wait 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours if he has to, before he dumps the body overboard. So that nobody saw him is meaningless. And then he says, oh, this is another one. He says about the witnesses. How many witnesses do you need for reasonable doubt? So he's basically saying, because the defense claims there's 12 witnesses, well, clearly all 12 couldn't be wrong, so why isn't there reasonable doubt? Because Dr. Grande, our justice system requires that those witnesses testify in court and that they be credible. So if they don't testify in court, you had 0 witnesses. That's why. All right. All right, let's see what else he had to say. Timeline issues, that it wasn't enough time for him to do it. That's not true at all. There is exactly enough time for him to do it. They try to say it would take him extra time to go to his storage unit and move the body, and that couldn't have possibly happened. That's not true. Then he goes on, example of how bad science can be problematic. Oh, his bad science is like he didn't like the guy who had the title stuff. So, oh, that's bad science. So therefore, throw the case out. He thinks he deserves a new trial. Why? What evidence is there for a new trial? The 12 witnesses that don't actually exist? All right. So that's the basics on that. Now, I want to point out, before I go on to just a little bit about what Dr. Grande had to say, which I thought was reasonable. Did I just have that over my face the entire time? Did I have that on my face, everybody? Oh, I hate it when I do that. So anyway, I may have had that picture on top of my face. Sorry. It's the way the thing works. You look in one spot, it doesn't show the picture on your face, and you forget to click, and it doesn't come off. So sorry about that if I did that. All right. So now I want to talk about the defense issue about how the body was dumped. Oh yeah, so I did screw that up. Sorry about that. I hate it when I do that. Anyway, it's live, so I'm screwed. It'll be there forever. All right. So I want to talk about what the defense team said about him dumping the body. So their claim is that he had this, first of all, that he couldn't, he put the body in the boat, right? Then he goes to a storage unit and he's got to move the body was put in his truck. Now he's at the storage unit and the body, he's got to get it into the boat. So one of the claims as well, it's broad daylight and he'd have to he'd have the car out, the vehicle out here pulling the boat. And now he's got to get the body out of the truck and put it in the boat. And somebody could see him do that. So it's unlikely that could have happened at that time. Well, first of all, that's not necessarily so. So depending on how far you have the truck out, where the boat is, or that you couldn't have driven, you could have hooked up the boat and driven off, gone down the road, and then partway there just pulled off on a side road and then transferred the body. Didn't think of that, did you, defense? So anyway, then they claim he couldn't basically get her body into the car. Now she was about 150 pounds, a little thin. Remember, let's look at their picture, what they look like together. So this is them. Big dude, little girl. Now she was pregnant, so they put an extra 20 pounds on her, but still, big dude, little woman. He was not a small guy. All right, so now they're claiming he's got to get this body into the car, into the boat, and he's out there. So this is the defense. They're trying to show how heavy she is. So you can't do it with one guy. You got to do two guys to get her into the boat. Okay, bodies can be heavy, but really? They couldn't possibly do it. There's no way it could have been done. There's a lot of ways you can do things. And so that's just kind of wimpy. Now, then you get down to okay, so now we're down at the dock, okay, and he backs the boat up. Now there's a claim that, nobody saw a body in the boat. Well, I'm going to say the body was covered up. You know what I mean? A lot of people have tarps in boats. They have tarps in boats all the time. Just because you have a tarp in your boat, people don't go, I wonder if there's a body down there. No, they don't do that. It's a tarp. Now, in this case, there was probably a body under it or in it, but that's not what people think. So the prosecution came up with these different ways that her body could have been put in the boat. So they got this up in the front, in the middle. They're just trying to come up with some ways. So anyway, and so then the defense comes up with another thing. Okay, so they say, okay, here she is. Now they made a body, a fake body with they put the weights on her. Okay. And they're saying, okay, there she is. You see, there she is. And you see the weights are all sitting around her. This is a defense. This is their video that they made. So they got the weights already attached to her, you see. And then he goes out in the boat. Now this guy is now trying to dump her body over the side of the boat, you see. Now, mind you, the guy is like 130 pounds himself. He's not a Scott. He's a small guy, and they put weights on him to equal him to Scott. So now he's not only a smaller guy with less muscles than Scott, but now he's a guy who's got weights all over him, and that's uncomfortable to wear and makes you unstable. But of course, that's what they want. So now he's going to try to chuck her body over the side, and you see what happens? Oh my God, the whole boat capsizes, and there it is, and then it sinks, you see? And while that's happening, they're screaming, take off the weights, because they don't want the guy to drown, right? So that's their explanation. All right. So is it impossible for Scott to have taken the boat out into the San Francisco Bay and dumped her body over? Well, first of all, he was bigger. Secondly, he didn't have to dump her over the side. Let me show you. Is it here? Where'd it go? That's not it. Okay, hold on a second. Maybe it failed to show up here. Hold on a second. I'm going to have to find the picture that didn't get put up here. Hold on a second. Where is my picture? Oh, there it is. Okay. Let's see if it comes up. Oh, come up. Okay, there it goes. Okay. This is called a transom. This is the back of the boat. You can throw a body off the back of the boat easier than the side because you have more stability. And the side, you keep leaning and then everything falls over because you put all weight on one side. But going over the back, the boat is stabilized. There's no reason why he couldn't have, look at it again, propped her body up against the back here and then pushed her over. That's the first thing. Secondly, nobody said that he actually attached the weights to her body while she was in the boat. You can push your body partway over the side. You can then drop, you can tie up one thing, drop one of the anchors over. You can have anchors sitting on the transom, tied up to her arms, and then push the rest of her over. So you don't actually have all the weights on her body at the minute she's going over. You can also push her over and have her attached by a rope to the boat so she doesn't sink. And then you can grab a leg and tie a weight to it and do all the anchors to her and then release the rope and let her sink. You could do all kinds of things like that, but they're not taking any of that into account. They have one video, which, oh, look, see how that shows how it works. No, that's not how it works. That's bull. And I don't think they allowed that even to be shown because it was garbage. So anyway, yes, could he have dumped her in the bay? Yes. Would it have been easy? Some people say the boat was too small, the bait was too choppy. He risked having the boat go over. Sure, those are all true things, but doesn't mean it didn't happen. Now, some people get lucky, some people manage it. So now here's the real clue. And I go back to this because, and I think the prosecution and everybody else believe this to be true as well. So here we have this again. You have to tell me that after Laci goes missing, well, let me tell you the three theories they have. Let me tell you the three defense theories. One is that a satanic group got a hold of her. Okay, let's just not even go there. The next one is that there was a burglary across the street on that morning. Now, the police claim it actually didn't happen on the 24th. It was really the 26th, but then the defense is going, oh, yeah, they told you the 26th and you just believe them. You know, they'll commit burglaries, but they won't lie. Oh. Okay. I don't know when the burglary occurred, but let's say it did occur on the 24th. They're claiming that Laci came out of her house and confronted the burglars, and then they kidnapped her. Okay. First of all, from what I hear about when the people actually left the house, it sounds like, you know, the chances of like the burglars showing up immediately and then kidnapping her immediately, it makes no sense. So I don't even think the time frame works. But okay, let's say it did. Let's say Laci went out there and said, what are you doing? You're stealing crap from my neighbor's house. And they grab her and throw her in the back of their van. How does she end up? How does she end up here in the San Francisco Bay? Exactly where Scott was fishing. How does that happen? What, again, oh, what a coincidence. Isn't that amazing? So some will say that, oh, no, well, what happened was they kept her until they found out where Scott was fishing, and then they framed him by driving up there and dumping the body in the bay. Really? First of all, they had no reason to frame him. If you actually grab somebody, you wouldn't even know about Scott. You want to get rid of that body as quick as you can. So within an hour, she'd be dumped in a ditch someplace. They're not going to wait to find out if Scott comes home and finds out she's missing and the police get involved. You don't wait all that long and keep a body in her van. You just dump her. Okay, but let's say you did. Now, when you want to frame Scott, here's what you don't do. You don't have to get a boat, which these are losers don't have a boat. You don't have to get a boat and get some anchors that you have to make or buy, which cost money. And then you take that boat out and dump her so she won't be found for 4 months. That's not what you do. You just roll up to the side of the where he was, where the boat dock is, and you dump her right there. You know, and have her, you know, somewhere nearby, and just dump her off the, you know, side of the water and have her found right away. Now, the defense team actually will say that, oh, yeah, she was actually dumped off the side of the water. I've seen some really ridiculous stuff on the internet, how the baby and she were dumped separately on the side of the, you know, mind you, she's missing her arms and all that, her head and stuff. Where did they go to? So, you know, if they're dumping her, they'd have to keep her around until, I don't know, something eats her up someplace else and then throw her there. I mean, it makes no sense. Because she obviously was in the sea for the bay for 4 months, so they couldn't have dumped her immediately. So none of it makes any sense. It's all stupid. The other one is she was walking her dog and somebody abducted her from the park. Same problem. Why is she ending up in the San Francisco Bay? So consequently, Dumbest thing ever. So now, also, by the way, in case I forgot to do that part, he also ran off toward Mexico. When he found the bodies were found, he jumped in his vehicle and he went down toward the Mexican border with maps of the Mexican border and $15,000 in cash, and he changed the color of his hair and all this stuff. Police caught him, arrested him, and he claimed, "Oh, I was only going down that way with all that stuff because I was hiding from the media." Sure, okay. Anyway, just nonsense, absolute nonsense. Now, to end this thing, I want to talk about Ken Mains, okay? Because Ken Mains, so I have I have a problem with the way he looks at crimes. Doesn't seem to understand criminal behavior. He's supposed to understand personality disorders, but he doesn't seem to understand psychopathy. I don't get it. I mean, he's a psychopath. And that's why he behaves like a psychopath. How do you not see that, Dr. Grande? How is that not part of why you understand why he killed off his wife? Why do you not get that? Or is your interest in the justice system more important so that you downplay people's personality disorders? I don't know. I don't understand it, but I have problems with it. All right. So now I just want to talk a little bit about Ken Mains. He points out that Scott Peterson didn't take the polygraph. He's looking at it from a police point of view. He wouldn't take a polygraph, and we all know that polygraphs aren't admissible in court, and sometimes people are scared of them, but he definitely wouldn't take it. Again, sometimes if you want your wife found, and your baby found, you want the police not looking at you, but he didn't take it. He thinks that, say sex is such a motive for crimes, but I think it's more power and control and more freedom and whatever the guy wants. So he didn't have to kill his wife and baby to be with Amber Frey, and I don't think he cared that much about her. He could continue having affairs like always, but now he was stuck being a father and having to be home more often. So I think that's what annoyed him. Same way we have with Chris Watts. Chris Watts just got tired of having to be the family man. I don't think he wanted to be a family man. He told Amber he didn't want kids, so he got rid of the family. He's a family annihilator. So he finds that all his behaviors, his affairs, running off to Mexico, lying, saying his wife was gone or lost by December 9th, wanting to sell the house right away, selling her vehicle before her body was even found. All of these things, he says, are evidence that that he could commit this crime. And then he says that. There's a couple of funny things he said here. One of them made me laugh. He said, when you're dealing with criminals, sometimes they'll deny things that are so obvious. And like he was saying that a guy's like semen ends up in a woman's vagina, and he goes, "Well, dude, what do you think it was? A semen fairy put it there?" Made me laugh. The semen fairy put it there, or maybe you did. So. Scott, one of the things Dr. Grande said was he always told the truth. I'm like, what in God's name are you talking about? He said he never lied. He lied everywhere about everything. Now, did he lie about his movements of that day? Well, I'm sure he did lie, but in different ways. In different ways, he lied about what he was doing. He was only letting you know what he wanted you to know. So that's a lie too. So I don't know, Dr. Grande, how do you not recognize people who are pathological liars? I'm a little confused about. So I find everything, the discussions here are all very interesting. In the long run, I believe the jury did get it right this time. The circumstantial case, which is what people always wonder about, the circumstantial case. Circumstantial cases are acceptable. You don't always have to have physical evidence pointing to everything. But because of all of his behaviors, and because he went fishing when he said he was going to go golfing. He said he wasn't going to go golfing because it was too cold, but yet he goes fishing on the San Francisco Bay, which is colder. All the lies, his affairs, his affair with Amber Frey, his premeditated thing saying I've already lost my wife and I'm not going to have Christmas with her, and the body showing up exactly where he went fishing. All of these things put together is a very, very strong circumstantial case, which leads to there is the likelihood of anybody else committing this crime and dumping her body exactly where the body ended up in the bay. It's so minimal that that is not reasonable doubt. That's ridiculous doubt if you have that. So reasonable, there was no reasonable doubt in this case at all. There was no reasonable doubt. The circumstantial evidence was so strong. And that's why it's not gotten an appeal, because there is no reasonable doubt. Was prosecution perfect? No. Was the defense perfect? No. But that's always the way it is. But it's, the circumstantial evidence was huge in this case. And to explain away why her body ended up where it did, it just can't be done. It can't. And so I think it was perfectly reasonable that he got nailed. Perfectly reasonable. And so I think it was all very, very interesting. Let's see. Yeah. Benny says, Steph is describing the archetype of psychopath. Yeah. I mean, his whole family history is very creepy, because his parents were messed up people, and they did messed up things, and they raised him after they got rid of all their other kids, dumped them all. They raised him as their little project, their pet project, and they call him the golden boy. And I'm going to say, we don't know what actually went on in the home and how much stuff he probably was psychopathic very early on, and lied and manipulated them. And they probably accepted it and allowed him to get away with it and excused him for all his bad behaviors, especially his mother, which is where a lot of times the issue lies. You got a father who maybe just wants what he wants. He wanted his son to golf. As long as his son's golfing, he might probably ignored everything else. And then the mother just constantly, had his back for things she shouldn't have his back for. And that shows up in the trial. One of the things Stephanie also says, which just made her throw up almost, was that the mother said, well, if you convict Scott or give him the death penalty, then it will be like Laci didn't matter at all, because if he's dead, then the whole family's gone. And she's like, what? Laci matters regardless of this piece of crap. She was a human being, and her family cares about her. And just because you put him to death doesn't mean that she disappears. But in the mind of this guy, that mother, oh yeah, well, and she didn't care about Laci and the baby anyway. It was all about Scott. So when you take away Scott, the rest of them don't matter either. So mother was a piece of work. Benny says, Pat, super analysis of the circumstantial evidence. I'm so happy. I agree 100%. Me too. And I think it's so evident that I can't believe that some people actually think he's innocent. Well, because people have trouble with circumstantial evidence. They want the video. They want the fact that her blood was in the boat. And they think, like Dr. Grande, there's explanations for everything that you can explain away. But as Ken Main says, which I love because this is my number one word, it's his number one word, totality of the evidence. It's not one thing. It's the totality of it that put it all together. The dude's guilty as hell. If you only had one thing, you go, you go, well, I don't know. Let's say went to the store and he came home and his wife was missing and he didn't call, and he didn't call her phone. That was the only thing. But he wasn't having an affair. He didn't drive to a fishing location where a body showed up. He just didn't call her phone because he's kind of a jerk. He said, oh, I don't know. I didn't. I came home. She wasn't there. And I just didn't bother. Okay, that may be the one, and that's not enough. But you start adding in all the other things, and you start seeing a pattern of behavior. You start seeing a premeditation. You start seeing that when the police, he said he didn't show emotion. They had problems with that. One of the things also Stephanie had a problem with was apparently when they were explaining, Laci's mother was saying how, when she went to the funeral home that, Laci and Connor, the baby, were together in the casket, I guess. And she said, well, she didn't have any arms. She couldn't even hold her baby in death. She didn't have any arms. And she said, while that was being said and everybody's crying, this was Scott. Psychopath. He can sue me. Psychopath. Total psychopath. I have no question about that. This is okay. Pat, I heard there was tape on Connor's ear and something wrapped around his neck. That was, it's debris from the water. He was inside her body, and only when the gases exploded her body and all the little buggies and the fishies and everything she started disintegrating. Essentially what happened was her abdomen opened up, and finally Connor floated out of there. So no, nothing was, that was one of the things the defense wanted to try to say, that she had birthed the baby somewhere else somehow, and then they killed the baby was killed, physically killed, and put into the water. And that's just nonsense, absolute nonsense. They're trying to say that when they studied how big the fetus was, that the prosecution said it was this big and it was really less or more or whatever, and that he was born alive and they killed him. It's garbage. No, it's probably debris from the water, because I mean, there's a lot of debris in our waters. There is a lot of debris. Yep, this is correct. The totality of the circumstantial evidence, and also physical evidence, it's a totality of all evidence: behavioral evidence, circumstantial evidence, physical evidence, time frames, all of this stuff. You just put like literally everything you got into the basket, and if the basket is full enough, you got totality of evidence, and that is really important. Let's see what else you have to say here. Benny says, Pat, Dr. Grande should take time to read a book called Killing for Sport by an author I really like. Oh, thank you. And I think he would learn something about psychopathy. Yes, and also, again, Inside the Criminal Mind. This is one of my absolute favorite books on psychopaths, because he worked at St. Elizabeth's Hospital in D.C., and he used to fall for the crap that they did. And he'd go, oh, I think maybe I can rehabilitate them. And then he found out, damn, they just played me. It's a brilliant book. I absolutely adore it. He's one of the psychologists. He's one of the psychologists out there that I think is brilliant and experienced things in life enough to understand how things really work. Great guy. He's an absolute favorite of mine. So definitely read his book too, because it's awesome. What did Lila say? Lila says, a lying dog. Pat, are you sure we're not saying a laying dog? If you weren't here the other week when we were discussing lying in wait or laying in wait, could you lay in wait or do you lie in wait if you're like a hitman or something? Are you laying in wait or are you lying in wait? And we've come to conclusion through all the work of grammar that it's lying in wait, right? Lying in wait. Laying has to have an object. So you lay your head on a pillow. So you're laying the book down, you're laying your head. But if you're lying, that's you're waiting, and you don't need an object. Object. It's in one of my other video, the one on the Laci murders in the French Alps. Actually have the information there about which one is correct, because we just went nuts. Dr. Grande's an Egyptian. He's in denial. I find it very interesting, because as I say, this is where our subjectiveness comes in. This is where our true aim in. And I do think he doesn't like the justice system. He doesn't like the death penalty, and he's into rehab. And because of those three things, I think it colors his viewpoint on things. And he's also not a criminologist. And I think YouTube, this is just my opinion, you make way more money in YouTube doing crimes than you'll ever make talking about psychology. So he found that it was lucrative. And yet, he does quite a few, he does his stuff quite quickly. And I don't know that he wants to, he also works, he does other stuff. I don't know if he's got the time to spend reading 2 books and watching all the videos and then studying all these different websites. He just goes like, Wikipedia and a defense team, and he's done. That's my opinion. Not that he doesn't have some interesting things to say. And sometimes I think he's pretty good. Sometimes I go, oh, I like that, Dr. Grande. That's a really good one. So I don't think it's all the time. And especially when he veers away from criminal cases and goes more toward psychological issues as far as other things go, I like him. I like what he says better. I just don't think he's a criminologist. And I think he misses the boat a lot of times when he talks about crimes. He just doesn't know. He doesn't understand crimes. He does. And most of the time I agree with him. Occasionally I don't. But he understands how police work, how detective works, how profiling works, what you do to analyze criminals. He's got it. And I do believe that, Stephanie does a really great job of getting all kinds of information together and putting it and making it palatable, and you can watch it, and she's got a great voice, and you can just enjoy watching her. Whether she's always correct on her final conclusions, which I often say, YouTubers shouldn't go there because they are not detectives or profilers, and a lot of times they're so wrong. Sometimes she's right, sometimes I think she's not right. But this case, she got Scott nailed and his family nailed. She was right about that crap. So I liked her discussion there. So I think that was really good. Scott didn't need an objective for lying. He now lay in prison. No, does he? Is he lying in prison? He probably is lying in prison. He probably lies every day. Oh no, we're back to the whole argument of laying and lying. So it's so confusing. Oh my God. Let me go back and see what else you had to say back here. Oh, she didn't ever go to his house or wonder why she hadn't. You're talking about Amber Frey. I believe this was early in the relationship. And one of the things he did was he kept telling her he had all these trips he had to take. And so, when sometimes people meet up and they're real excited and they think, oh my God, this guy's so cool. They're kind of like the emotion takes over and the lust takes over. So you don't ask too many questions in the beginning. So then you like, he says, that's why I'm not going to be around next week is because I'm here. And then he's really back with his wife. And then, and he's a good liar. So he probably comes across really well until somebody ratted him out. And then she started, and she was a little suspicious, but he explained it. And then she felt guilty because when he said, I lost my wife and I won't be with her for Christmas, she's like, man, I can't sit there and like badger him about this. It's, he's a widower, until she found out he wasn't. And then she cooperated with the police. She went to the police. She told them what had happened, what he said, and then she cooperated. And she did she wore a wire or they tapped her phone and got lots of interesting information through that. And she was willing to go along with the program and act her part. That was amazing. And I think she did a good job because she was probably pretty appalled that she had dated this guy and found out he was married and that he may have killed his wife and baby. So I think she was very cooperative. But as far as, people, again, I always point this out. The problem is people have hope for a relationship and they don't want to screw it up. That's why I say people go on Match.com. They have sex with a person on the first date because they want the second date. They don't want to screw it up. They want the person to like them. And so they go ahead and they hope that they'll call back and it'll turn into a relationship. They hope. I'm a little more lethal on these things. I wouldn't do that. And when I met my ex-husband, when we met, he was 19, I was 23. Yeah, I like young boy. Anyway, he was from Jamaica. His family had immigrated from Jamaica. My first thought was, does he have a green card? I was pretty smart at 23. I wasn't fooling for this crap. I'm like, does he have a green card? Because I don't want him hooking up with me to get himself a green card. And so I said to him, do you have a green card? I want to see it. I said straight up, I want to see the green card. Show it to me. And he did. I went, alrighty then. Then we dated. But I mean, if he had said, well, if you're going to have to ask me about that, I don't even want to date you. I would say, well, then go away. I don't need to date a person who doesn't understand my concern about the green card issue. And he did understand, and he handed me the green card. And so that was that. And we dated and then eventually got married and eventually got divorced. But hey, it's 25 years of marriage. So, people don't want to ruin their chances. So they tend to be a little bit reluctant to ask too many questions, to stand up to somebody, to check them out. And I am a profiler, so I always find it kind of funny because I only tried twice online to do internet dating, and one was Match.com, which lasted for like a week because it was horrible. And the second one was another website, and the guy said to me that he was divorced and he was living in Texas, and he was really cool. We had great conversations on email, and then I figured out, by way of his description of who he was and his email address, I figured out how to find out who he was. Well, I found out he was divorced, but he'd remarried and had 2 more kids. He said he was divorced with 2 kids. He was actually remarried and had 4 kids. And then on top of it, I found out through his email that he was looking for hookers in San Diego, blonde, buxom hookers. And so the next time he contacted me, I said, well, I'd be happy to go out with you when you come to town, but do let your wife know about, our relationship and and all the hookers you have down in San Diego. And the guy's like, oh no, oh my God, oh my God. And then he was like bowing down to me going, please, please don't tell my wife. Please don't tell my wife. I'm like, dude, I could make so much money in blackmail. But I didn't blackmail, but I was willing to check them out. And a lot of times people they want to believe that they found the right person. And Amber thought she found this great guy because on the surface, he does look that way. And obviously Laci thought she found a great guy too, didn't she? And she didn't. So really sad, really, really sad. Tammy says, thank you for your great analysis. Thank you. This was a high profile case and emotions did run high, but it was the totality of the evidence that ultimately convicted him. Yes, it was. Absolutely. Wait a minute. Martin says, I don't think I would pass Pat's screening test for a date. Really? Is that true? Oh my goodness. We'll find out why, because, you know, I mean, I thought you were on my list, Martin. Oh, man. Oh, I already did that one. Benny says, no, me either. I assume she would profile the heck out of me in 10 minutes and discover I'm a serial killer. I have not. I'm going to profile you right now, Martin and Benny. I haven't seen that in either one of you. So you're still okay people with me. Not that I would date y'all, but you're still pretty cool people with me. And I haven't noticed any psychopathy in you. So isn't that nice? And believe me, sometimes I do. When somebody comes on one of these things, sometimes within seconds you can see their narcissism or their psychopathy really, really quick. I see it a lot of times in my comments below on YouTube. So guys, if you're watching the show still, please do comment below on the Scott Peterson case. But if your comments show me that you're a narcissist, psychopath person, you might get your comment removed or be blocked. Oh, Lord. But let me see anything else. Chat on Pat and she will find you out. Oh, come on now, Benny. Yeah. Okay. You're not a serial killer. So anyway, that was, I thought this was a really interesting case. And again, I think he's guilty as heck. And the other thing I just want to point out before I stop is that the whole boat issue is, I think, the trickiest part of this case, because it's one of those things where you go, I'm not sure how he did it. How did he dump her body in San Francisco Bay? How did he accomplish it? But the fact is, where was her body? It was in the San Francisco Bay. And it obviously had been weighted down because parts of her body had been pulled apart and it didn't float up for a long time. And, you know, so it had to have been weighted. So somebody did put her body into the San Francisco Bay. Somebody did weight her body down. Who would have done that? Who's the person that had a boat, wanted to get rid of somebody, and went to all that effort? Well, the only person that's rational is Scott Peterson. So you may think it's a tough thing to do, but he did it. He accomplished it. So a lot of times, just because we can't imagine, oh, well, it looks too hard to do, like the defense team wanted us to believe, we think that it didn't happen, but yet it did happen. So unless somebody else abducted Laci the very day, and on that very day, or just soon after, kept her someplace, and then got a bigger boat. They had a bigger boat, and they took her out and dumped her in the water, just to frame Scott, who they probably didn't even know. Well, you know, none of that makes any sense. So she ended up in the San Francisco Bay for a reason, and he was the reason. So, oh, you are most welcome, Lisa. And you're welcome again, Lisa Anna and Lisa S. That was great. Thanks, Pat. You always come with such an interesting take, and your points in this case are so well taken. Thank you. I try to, you know, again, do logic in all these cases to help people understand how things work. And again, I want to just say at the end here, I subscribe to all these folks, and I'm not unsubscribing to them, even if I at a certain point think, you know, you're kind of off the mark on that. But I do want you to understand where they're coming from and how that colors what they're saying. And the same thing for me. What colors what I'm saying? You can look at who I am, what I present, and understand what the things that color what I'm saying, so that you can just, you know, be able to judge properly the information you're getting and how accurate it is, and why a person is analyzing a certain way is because of who they are and what their kind of what their take on things is. So I just think it's important to understand that in all of the future things you're going to look at. So Molly says, thanks for the show, Pat. Once again, Mark Grandiose made a lot of noise and then went down in flames. Nah, I don't know. Megan says, I did online date apps after my divorce. Oh, what a wild ride that was. Happy with my boyfriend of nearly a year. Met him on Tinder. Really? Really? You met him on Tinder? I'm not going to ask about the first date part. I'm not going to go there. It's a private matter. But how did you get the second date? Because I've never gotten a second date because of what I won't do on the first date. Just saying. Just saying. All right. Anyway, that'll be it for today. I'm going to toddle off now and make myself a wee bit of dinner. And I'm glad you all came here today, and I'll be letting you know what's happening during the week. I'm not quite sure what I've got planned yet, but I've got to look at my schedule and figure out what goes where, and I will let you know if you're on Patreon. If you're not, click below and join Patreon. If you're on Patreon, you'll be getting the messages as to what's happening during the week, and I hope to see you there. Bye.